All right, from one champ to the next, the dollars are flying around in OKC as the big man, Chet Holmgren, got paid this morning. Holmgren agreed to a fully guaranteed rookie max extension worth a projected $239 million, which could be worth as much as $250 million.
Oh, my goodness.
This deal does not include a player option, by the way, and that's after SGA already signed his 4-year Supermax deal worth a projected $285 million. The MVP's contract, which starts in 2 years, is worth over $71 million a season, the largest average annual value in NBA history. The Thunder have now committed for a projected $524 million in extensions to keep SGA and Chet in OKC through the 30-31 season. Next on their agenda could be an extension for Jalen Williams, who, like Holmgren, is rookie extension eligible this summer. Now welcoming in the man who broke the news this morning, our guy Shams Charania. Check out the full rookie max extension. How did this deal come about, Shams?
George, when you win a championship, the second youngest team ever to do so, big business awaits. And they got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander done on that 4-year, $285 million Supermax last week. And then it was about Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams, a.k.a. J-Dub. And today was Chet Day, and getting him done was the priority. Oklahoma City officials and Holmgren's agent, Bill Duffy at WME, they met over the last week or so, ironed out this 5-year full max extension that reaches almost $250 million this morning. It is fully guaranteed, and this is for a player that has dealt with some serious injury issues in his 3 seasons. But listen, last year, he was the anchor of what was a historic defense. He had the best plus-minus of any player in the NBA playoffs. He had the most blocks ever in a Game 7 of the NBA Finals. So up to $250 million for Chet Holmgren. He was on an all-star trajectory last year before his hip injury that sidelined him for 3 months. So he's committed. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's committed. Jalen Williams next up at some point here. But Chet Holmgren, like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander last week, they had the very important attribute of commitment to this Thunder organization moving forward.
All right, you kind of alluded to it there with Jalen Williams, but what else does OKC potentially now have to look forward to in regards to the foreseeable future about locking up this roster or making roster moves?
George, I'm told now the Thunder are going to fully focus on finishing up Jalen Williams, their all-NBA star guard forward, fully focus on finishing up his extension. There is momentum in those conversations with the Thunder between both sides. There's been positive talks, and both sides are aligned on where those negotiations are going. But big picture, the Thunder will be entering the 2025-26 season as a non-luxury tax team for the 3rd straight season. It's very unique in today's NBA to be competing for a championship year in and year out. But it goes to the fact that they have this young core that is just now entering this max extension era for them. They have a bunch of role players locked up on long-term deals. But again, bigger picture, starting that 2026-27 season, this is a team that's projected to begin entering the 1st and 2nd apron.
Shams, thank you so much. You're the man, brother. Appreciate you. All right, so there was Shams. Now, Chiney, we know there have been 7 different champions in the last 7 seasons, but when you look at this Thunder team, okay, are they more equipped than any other team to be a potential dynasty?
Right now, they're sitting pretty, I'll tell you that. And I just was listening to Shams, and I started writing some things down. I was like, 2 of their contracts worth $500 million. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
$500 million. Sam Presti, obviously maneuvering this, they're still under the luxury tax. And their big 3, 27 years or younger, a number of them all NBA.
Yep.
This is wild level of finesse in the NBA. And, you know, if there's one team that is positioned for destined for greatness, it is this squad. But there's one big caveat, okay? It's the fact that when you grow over the next few years, as these guys continue to be dominant, it's going to be that much harder, especially when those numbers hit the books, to retain the supporting cast.
Right.
The Carusos, the Hartensteins, you know, the Dorts. That, to me, is the question mark. But they do have 11 picks to be able to buffer the young roster around them. But I think they're hedging on that core, that big 3 core, which, by the way, if you're thinking about it, I was in love with the James Harden, the Russell Westbrook, the Kevin Durant. But this right here, they won a championship. Not saying that they're better than those future Hall of Famers, but their team is basically has a runway where they've bought in already to the identity, the system. they have so many boxes checked that it's like, okay, if any team can do it and go back-to-back, maybe it's them.
But they're set up for sustainable success, and they're set up in a way where, as Janae mentioned, I think they won because of their cast, because of the supporting cast, because of their depth. They just outlasted everybody. They had the most talent, and they outlasted everyone. And I think as we go forward, okay, Hartenstein might become a luxury. Well, guess what? You have Jalen Williams behind him, and then you have Sorber, who you just drafted, and then you have Brandon Carlson, who you just did.
Cason Wallace is right there, already getting big minutes.
Dort,
you know?
I mean, they just have the second wave right behind that first wave, and as you mentioned, Shea's extension doesn't kick in for 2 more years.
Right.
So he's still on the deal that he was on before. These extensions don't kick in for a little while.
Yeah.
And they have a couple years to play with those secondary players before they have to make those tougher decisions.
And by the way, can we shout out Jalen Williams a little bit here?
Yeah.
That man was dealing with a wrist injury since March. He missed 2 weeks in March after an injury, then re-aggravated it in April and played through the entire playoffs. He just talked about this recently, playing through that wrist injury. I was in those huddles. He was getting work on that wrist the entire conference finals and finals.
I remember watching him. We saw him. There was one game where he hit a couple shots. It was against Denver. And he starts blowing on his hand. And that wrist, the wrist that's always taped. And we asked him about it post-game. And he's trying not to say anything. Sure. Right? He's trying not to acknowledge any level of pain or whatever it is. He goes, oh, I didn't even know. The cameras literally captured him doing it. And he goes, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, that guy was cool as a pillow.
And you know what's crazy to me? The only player that had high levels of consistency through all rounds was Shea. Now you're going to get that in the future with J-Dub and Chet only improving. To me, it's wild. Even though the West is still tough.
Stacked.
Yeah.
Future is bright for sure there, no doubt about it. All right, coming up, the world of hoops. Starting in Texas, the Spurs and Wizards worked out a trade to send Kelly Olynyk to San Antonio. They also signed Luke Cornett in free agency. Janae, how will this center depth help Victor Wembanyama?
Look, this allows their front court to be more flexible because one thing that Victor Wembanyama likes to do is have the rock in his hands, especially when it comes to transition or even being able to shoot from 3. I know he only shot 35% from 3, but now you have a little bit more versatility. I also like them surrounding him with seasoned vets, but most importantly, they've got young talent. This is a team not to be played with in my great state of Texas.
Next to Dallas, sticking in Texas. Shams reported that Anthony Davis had a procedure to repair a detached retina.
Oh.
He should be ready for training camp, according to Shams. The Mavs were crushed by injuries last year. Ramona, is it time for goggles?
Yes, it's been time for goggles. He has a history of getting poked in the eye. I don't know why this seems to happen to him a lot, but back in 2020, look what LeBron James told him to do. LeBron James puts up this tweet, says, Anthony Davis, side by side with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It's time for goggles, man.
All right, finally reports out of Denver that 3-time MVP Nikola Jokic will not seek a contract extension this summer, delaying talks until next year. Jokic has 3 years left on his current deal, including a player option for 27-28. Young Masuk reported on this story yesterday and joins us now here. So, Omi, walk us through this contract scenario with Jokic, and should Denver fans have any cause for concern?
Yeah, and talking to people around the league, and including people from the Nuggets, there's zero concern about this being something like Nikola Jokic left the door open for other teams. This was expected because next year he could sign for a 4th year up to maybe as much as close to $80 million more. Now, if you're a team like the Clippers, who have cleared cap space to maintain flexibility, you will have this hope, perhaps, that maybe